Welcome in to Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Hey, how we doing, everybody? We're learning more and more about the 2025 Bears with each passing day during the OTA portion of the offseason, with mandatory minicamp set to open next Tuesday here at Hallis Hall. Welcome into Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Chicago Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. Along in a moment, former Bears quarterback Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. Guest free tonight, but we'll hear from Bears head coach Ben Johnson, quarterback Caleb Williams, defensive end Montez Sweat, and the new veteran quarterback Case Keenum from the week that was up here at Hallis Hall. Tommy, good evening. Dan Barilli and Jordan Tredup, our producers. Spinning the dials at ESPN is Jack McGrath, our executive producer. Eric Ostrowski of the Bears Radio Network. A lot going on. We got the next week's going to be big. Going to love that. But, hey, what have we learned this week? What have we learned about the Bears that has caught your attention? It's almost my weekly question to you out of the gate, but with a few more OTAs in the books and the Caleb Williams podium experience. We'll hear some of that tonight. So a lot of things.
You know, they're playing a faster brand of football. There's a lot of encouragement and coaching going on from the coaching staff. I think that they're trying to identify who fits where. We often talk about, and I talk about, with the depth chart, and everybody's trying to get their name on that depth chart because that's a key ingredient when you move into training camp. What I'm excited about going forward is next Tuesday, all the alumni are invited to the practice. Oh. And I think that the way you monitor social media, I think you'll be able to read a lot more about what the alumni that come to the practice for the first time, what their reflection is of the atmosphere. And I think because these guys have so much experience in their football life, they understand how to listen to coach, and they understand how to watch their position. They understand how this stage of development is really important part, but stage with the next stage of the whole process in a football team development is that's when the real stuff starts. And so I'd be excited to talk to a lot of those guys at practice, but I'm super encouraged by what I see at practice. I'm super encouraged at the speed at which they're playing and the requirements of Ben Johnson and all of his staff.
Hey, Big Jim Miller joining us now. Jim will be here at training camp. He'll do his Sirius NFL training camp tour, and his stop will be here in Chicago, hopefully with yours truly. We'll be breaking things down, but I know you're going to be excited to see all this, too. You're an alumni. It matters to you. I know you've played for several teams, but I'm wondering for both of you, and Jim, welcome and good evening. Hope you're doing well. Mm-hmm. Did you guys have a lot of alumni hanging around when you guys were at these guys' age right now? For the 85 Bears, Tommy, that was your first year. But, Jim, I mean, there were plenty of 85 Bears around. Certainly Tom was one of them, calling the games that you worked in for us.
Yeah, guys would show up periodically and also at training camp. And, yeah, it was important, and you'd have different staffs that come into, like college football staffs that come in. This is typically the springtime where staffs want to see what you're doing offensively, and certainly Ben Johnson, he'll have a couple of staffs that roll through there that are interested to see what he's doing offensively and how he install things, how they coach certain positions, all those type of things. So there's actually a lot going on in the spring, and it is more teaching during as it is an install. You're teaching guys the basics of what you want to accomplish and all the discipline and the techniques and all those type of things. So it's very thorough, and it has to be very thorough for a reason. And these are building blocks of what they want to press onto, and that things are going to come a lot faster come training camp. But it was always good to have the older players come by, stop by, just to see them, that they've been through it. They've going through the same things you're going through as a current player, and they had a lot of success. So you try to tap their brains. Guys like Tom Thayer, hey, man, what was so different about your team? Why were you guys so tight? What made you guys so close-knit? We knew they were talented, but I think if you're a very good team, typically you're going to have guys that work hard, that are self-starters, like a Tom Thayer, like that whole 85 Bears team, and there's a reason why they were so close-knit. They knew that they were going to be good. And they believed in one another, and they counted on one another.
Who showed up back in your day?
Jeff, because we didn't have OTAs and it led us right into mandatory minicamp, we didn't have a lot of alumni hanging around at a mandatory minicamp, and it was a 3-day mandatory process that, Dick had kind of dangled that carrot in front of the horse where, okay, the last day of minicamp, we'll either have 1 practice or 2 practices. But it was more training camp when the guys came to Platteville. And that's when, either it was a destination to drive to with their family for a day or even a couple days. There's nice surrounding areas up there in Platteville. And so if you had that chance for 15, 20 minutes in between practices, while we were in the weight room, they would come and visit the weight room in Clyde Emmerich. Or even at night when we had our 15 minutes of free time at the end of meetings, and guys would go to different places and have a beer, and they would be there as well. So for us, it was more catching up with the alumni at training camp more so than minicamp.
Do you remember who showed up?
Oh, there was a lot of guys like Mike Pyle, Ed Obradovich, Roland Harper, Jim Osborne, Danny Neal, Doug Buffone, Doug Plank, Terry Schmidt. There's plenty of guys. You still had your Bob Avellini's and stuff. So there was plenty of guys that showed up for one reason or the other.
Yeah, I get a kick out of that actually when I see all that. I think it's important to keep that the alumni close to the organization. The Bears do a really good job at trying to make that happen. So they'll continue to do that next week. So guys like Kyler Gordon, T.J. Edwards dealing with some soft tissue injuries, Luther Burden III as well. And we'll learn more about this during the next week with the minicamp, who's available. But Ben Johnson saying yesterday that everybody should be in the building at least. It is mandatory, so even if you are injured. With that said, let's listen in to some Ben Johnson yesterday at the podium. He was talking about the specifics that he needs from his players, no detail too small. And one is they got to start defining what a snap, a rep, a play looks like at the finish, from defense right through to the offense.
The ball, the momentum of the ball running through the defense in practice, even without pads on. And so it's a learning experience of what that looks like and what we're going to be about. And then offensively, we talk about the finishing aspect of getting connected down the field and blocking for our buddies. So finishing is a huge deal about what we're doing. We're very much rooted in the fundamentals and the techniques of what we're asking our guys to do. And so we saw growth last week in that way, and that's the expectation for us going forward.
I saw you guys make them go back in the huddle several times. What exactly are you looking for in the huddle and as they come out of it?
Yeah, there's a certain way that the play needs to get communicated in the huddle. There's a certain way that the break should sound to us around us that means that we're ready for business and we're ready to get going. And if it doesn't sound that way, then we're just not going to allow the practice to go south. Fatigue is something that we're going to combat. The longer practice goes, the more fatigue guys get, and the mental toughness has to come through of still doing the little things correctly. So that's a part of it.
We saw Magashi at left tackle last week when we were here, and today it was Ozzie. Is it 1 day on, 1 day off for each guy, or is it based on how they're?
We're moving guys around. Yeah, we want to give everyone an opportunity. So, Darnell, we feel pretty comfortable keeping him at the right side right now. So the left side until we get Braxton back in the mix, it's going to be a little bit of musical chairs.
Would you consider right tackle settled then, that he's not going to move?
To be determined. Anything's on the table, and we're going to let the plan play out, which is keep them there for the time being and let these guys battle it out on the left side, and we can decide to change course whenever we need to.
Ben, what are you learning about what Caleb can handle at this point as you're kind of resetting for him?
It's been consistent throughout. He's been very attentive. He's been very detailed in terms of the meetings. He's taking great notes. He's asking excellent questions. The more we're out on the grass together, we're figuring out what we can put in the morning and what we can execute later on in the afternoon. And so that's been the fun part of it so far, because there's for everybody, there's a saturation level that we got to find what that point is, so that as coaches, we don't ask too much out of any player over the course of the season. We got to be able to download a game plan and execute it. And so it's been a healthy process right now. I think JT Barrett's doing a phenomenal job. Declan's a big part of that as well, just figuring out how much install we can push on these guys. And the good news is we got the weekend that they can get the plan and start ahead for the next week. And you can really see guys separate, not just at the quarterback position, but really all around on offense and defense, who's in their book a little bit extra than the next guy.
How have you seen Keenum helping Caleb throughout the process?
Case has been phenomenal. I haven't been with him in the past, but he came highly recommended from a number of people that I trust. He's got skins on the wall. I mean, he's been to playoff games. He's won playoff games. He's done it at a high level. He's been the number 2 quarterback at a number of different places as well. So his experience level is off the charts. He's seen a little bit of everything that this league has to offer. And I can say from my experience of being in the room with him, he finds a good way to ask questions that I might not, or Declan or JT, we might not have provided the answer to prior. So he does a good job filling those gaps. And then, of course, we're constrained so much by the time limits in the springtime that he's able to help the process when we're not in there as coaches.
And he is battling for the number 2 job with Tyson Bagent, entering his 3rd season. One thing out of this that I'll throw in, and then I want your reactions from both of you guys. He is a first-time head coach. He has not had a regular season game just yet, but he certainly sounds like he's been here before. He sounds like a head coach, and everything he's saying makes sense. That's the number one thing for me. Everything Ben Johnson is saying makes sense.
You know, one thing I kind of giggle at is when I listen to Ben Johnson. If you didn't know he was a first-time head coach, you really wouldn't know it, because he's prepared and he's concise about all of his answers. However, when I listen to him, he reminds me so much of George Allen talking at the podium, because George Allen was a stickler for breaking the huddle. And he says the breaking the huddle, that was a big part of the influence of practice, because he kind of got a feel that everybody was on the same page. The sound of the break, the way you went to the line of scrimmage. And when I think about my past experiences of football and all the quality coaches that I had a chance to play for, it already kind of makes me think about a guy that we're all waiting to see how his first experience goes at head coach, but he sounds like a seasoned head coach. And it's super encouraging to me, because it's things I've heard I've heard before from coaches with a great deal of experience.
Yeah, I like the part of we don't allow things. That was the problem last year, and it was veteran players saying, well, we just kind of skipped over things, and if something wasn't run right, they just let it go. Okay, you can't allow that. That's why you're dead last in offense, dead last in sacks. I literally would put up every statistic of what the Bears did last year in that locker room to let them know how bad they were. And if I were Ben Johnson, I'd say when a player says, oh, I got it, coach, don't worry, I got it. The only thing you're going to get is me fired. I'm not going to be the guy that gets fired over you not knowing your job. Okay, so don't allow it. Don't allow it at all on any single play, and it starts with breaking the huddle like Tom just said. Don't allow any of it, because they haven't earned that right as any player in that locker room.
Well, by watching practice, I can tell you it's fast, it's furious, it's aggressive on both sides of the ball, and they are pushing the limits here just in short pants and shirts and helmets. No pads. It's going to be a great training camp. When we come back, we'll be joined by Caleb Williams, some of his press conference yesterday here at Hallishaw. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network.
You're listening to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy. Jeff and Tom and Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio as we break down what has been an interesting offseason for the Bears leading into next week's veteran minicamp. It was admittedly a distraction, frankly, the only one of this offseason. Distraction-free is good. That's what teams want. But ESPN senior writer Seth Wickersham's upcoming book, American Kings, a biography of the quarterback, will include some Caleb Williams in there. Some of what came from Wickersham was discussed at length Wednesday as the Bears quarterback, who did a very good job tackling some key points, clarifying his thought process and what he wants to do as a Bear moving forward. And this is about moving forward, among other topics. Here's Caleb Williams.
The main goal and the main objective of being here is to turn around. That's why I was selected number one. And so, that's what we're here to do. That's what they brought, me here to do. That's what they brought all these guys here to do. Joe, DJ, all these different guys. And that's why they brought Ben here. And so, like I said, it's a challenge. And we look at those challenges and, we don't laugh. We look at them really, really seriously. And, we go attack them, to the best of our ability to go and change it and turn it around.
What about the new leadership under Ben has left an impression on you?
Yeah, no, Ben's, I think y'all have been able to see it when he gets up here. And you get a little taste of how he is. He's always laser focused. He encourages and he pushes you and challenges you to be at your best. As a team, offense, defense, special teams, doesn't matter position. He's sharp. And he's a guy that wants to win. And so, being here, being the head guy, and to be honest, he's consistent with it every day. So, so him being here and being the head guy and doing all of those things and being consistent with it, so far it's been awesome, and I think everybody's been enjoying.
What has Ben taught you about those shortcuts or just things that maybe he sees that he wants you to start seeing?
Like I said, I think Ben has been extremely detailed, and so when he talks about the plays, when he talks about the pass, run, screen, play action, he talks about them really in depth, and what we love him versus and what we don't love him versus and things like that, and just have an idea going into practice, going into soon game days and things like that. It's going to be nice for something that we've been repping and getting after. And I think that's been one of the things that's been really awesome is the detail and him really being on top of that. And I mean, he's been in it for 6 years. It's been his offense for 6 years. So he's really on top of it. And we're only trying to catch up. I'm only trying to catch up to him and be on the top of the details as much as possible.
What else is in the chapter? I'm curious what that chapter is going to look like.
Nah, I honestly don't care. It's not, like I said, we're all of those things were in the past. All of the things happen already. And so we're here focused on the future. We're here focused on the present. And really trying to, like I said, get this train going and have this thing picking up steam and choo-chooing along.
With that being said, when the past is the past, you're here now. Ben Johnson has made some tweaks to your game. How have you adjusted to the change in the stance? How have you adjusted to being under center a little bit more?
I guess the Ben Johnson effect, right?
Huh?
I guess the Ben Johnson effect, right? He's gonna get a kick out of that when he hears it. Yeah, no, I think part of it is just different coaches have different philosophies for things, and that's one of his things is left foot up. I've been a right foot up guy for typically all of my career, and I think I've done it once or twice throughout my time of playing QB. So it's just one of his things. And then, like I said, the details, being on top of it, huddle, we call it PSP, but pre-snap procedure, all these different things matter, and especially in big games and big moments, all the little things come up. And so I think that's important to him, and it's important to us, and we gotta get on top of it and be on top of it from the head down. So, like I said, the Ben Johnson effect, I guess, right?
Yeah, and the Ben Johnson effect is permeating the entire building in many different ways. But okay, so that's a portion of it. Tommy, take the floor.
The thing about what foot forward or and how things are changing, that is fundamentally done, and you're going to do it a million times before the season start. And it's going to become second nature, and that'll be an easy transition. But when Ben Johnson was talking up at the podium, he was talking about oversaturating these guys and see how they absorb that amount of information and then how they carry it to the field in the afternoon. And that's just the process of installing a playbook to all these guys because they're all starting from ground zero because this is a new head coach. Fortunately, I was in a system for 7 years, and by year 2 or 3, it's second nature to you. You know every single little thing about it, and then you just keep repeating it. It's not something you start installing different stuff because that's not what your offensive game plan is. So by the time Caleb gets into training camp and the latter stages of training camp, all of this footwork and terminology will become second nature to him.
Jim, that's a great point. It would be refreshing to know that Caleb Williams will be with this head coach for the next 5 years at a minimum and learn, everything second nature. And to me, that would make the most impact on Caleb Williams is the continuity with the head coach and play caller.
Absolutely. And here Ben Johnson's given him the reasons why. There's a reason why he wants his left foot forward. It's to make him a more efficient, better quarterback. And it absolutely correlates to him playing better. And so, again, he's not responsible for the sins of the past. However Caleb was coached in the past, I don't care. I don't think Ben Johnson cares, and nobody else should care. The bottom line is to make him a better quarterback. And having your left foot forward will make him a better quarterback. So do it coach's way, and maybe we'll have better offensive numbers than we had a year ago, because there's a reason why he wants you to do that. And so he's got to do it his way. And, again, you don't allow certain things, and Ben Johnson's in control of it.
Jim, what will defenses, this may be a shot in the dark, but what will defenses do to challenge Caleb now that they have a 17-game survey of sorts to sift through from last season, or is it all irrelevant from last season because it is going to be a new system?
Yeah, it's irrelevant. They'll go by the first game breakdown or the first 5 weeks breakdown. They'll see what the Bears, I think they'll go back, they'll watch the Lions tape. Oh, Ben likes to, he does 2 tight ends 26% of the time. So we're probably going to expect Loveland and Cole Kmet are going to be out there 26% of the time, is how other teams are going to game plan them before week 1. They're going to look at some of the things that Ben taps into, some of his tendencies. But as for the Bears players and what they've shown, no, they really can't game plan. It won't be till after really week 4, week 5, that they'll start to get really a bead on Caleb and how he performs in this new offense and how he performs differently from what they did a year ago and what their areas of focus are going to be. Because there's going to be areas that are better than others until they catch up with everything that Ben wants to do.
And one thing leading up to that first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, for Jeff Joniak, the broadcaster, it's going to be more important for you to pay attention during practices and training camp than it will be for preseason games. Because I don't think that Ben Johnson is going to reveal or unveil what his offense is all going to be about in that first 4 or 5 weeks. He's going to show a little bit of something. You guys start preparing for this, but this is an offshoot of what else we can offer you. So probably for us going to practice every day in training camp, it's going to be a time that you really, really want to pay attention.
Will do. Good advice indeed. Coming up next, we'll hear from Case Keenum, the newest Bears quarterback, as we continue on Bears Weekly with Jim Miller and Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network. Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Jeff and Tom and Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. Another quarterback new to the Bears, but certainly not to the NFL. A battle underway for that number 2 spot, according to head coach Ben Johnson, with third-year Tyson Bagent and the 12-year veteran Case Keenum on his 8th team in those 12 years. Once upon a time, the NCAA leader in total passing yards, touchdowns, and completions at the University of Houston. And you got to remember, and I forgot this, fellas, this is an undrafted player. At 6'1", 215, similar in size, at least height, and weight to Caleb Williams, and he's impressed with the second-year quarterback's performance.
Holy cow, this guy's really good, and he's got a chance to be a lot better. And just it's been great. It's been so much fun coming here and playing and being a part of that quarterback room and an offense and, working with Ben and Deck and JT and Press and obviously with Caleb and Tyson and Austin, those guys in that room. It's been really special for me. I'm enjoying it.
You was to be a guide for him. So what has excited you about the early stages of that relationship and what you think you could give him at this stage of his career?
He's just he's a sponge, for being an all-world talent, a guy who's obviously since high school, been the best player on any field anywhere he's ever stepped on. To be humble enough to ask me questions and watch and learn has been really refreshing to see a guy that young and that talented, but still, take to me and say, it's been really fun.
Did you want any assurances that you could compete to be the number 2 coming here?
I've competed my whole life. I show up every day and hope my locker's not cleaned out, man. That's how I treat every day. I compete against myself, compete against the guys in that room. I compete against, the defense we're playing today, and then every day. I've competed my whole life. So, I have a knack of sticking around and being ready to go when my name is called, no matter when that is or how that is. So I'm impressed with that whole room. Caleb, obviously, I've already talked about him, but I think Tyson's going to play a long time in this league. I really do. He is very athletic. He's trained, and he is hungry. I mean, he's one of the most well-prepared guys on that field every day. So I'm very impressed with him. And Austin, I see a lot of myself in Austin. A young guy that just needs a shot and is hungry. Doesn't get a ton of reps, but makes the most of them when he can.
Do you have a connection with Ben Johnson at all, or anyone else on the staff?
I mean, when you played as long as I have, and you've been around enough coaches, that we had a bunch of kind of couple of degrees of separation, and I've talked to a bunch of guys about him, and I think he did the same about me to some of those same people. So. We had some connections, but no, I'd never really worked with him in the past.
As you talked about, you watched some of Caleb's film before you ended up coming here. What were some of the things that you saw that immediately you were like, if he makes this small tweak, he's going to take this next step?
I mean, what jumped out immediately was just effortless arm talent. I don't know if I've seen a guy do that as a young guy. But just being able to take sometimes what defenses give you and not make this crazy big, off-schedule play, letting those plays kind of come to you. And I think he found some spots of that last year, and he's settled into this offense and how Ben sees it, and trying to get on the same page with him and Press and Deck and JT, trying to all come out of that quarterback room and seeing the defense the exact same way as the play caller has been. So. What we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to accomplish it, along with the footwork, the operation before the snap, defense recognition, all those things combined with leadership. So it's quarterbacking. I mean, it's an art and it's a science, and it's all of that combined. And there's 100 ways of getting the ball down the field. But in the end, I think there is some common threads, some common themes of being a pro quarterback, what it means day in and day out. Showing up here, being ready to do your job. And, that's representing himself, his family, an offense, a coaching staff, the team, an organization, and a city like Chicago, where it was such a storied tradition of players and coaches and really sports teams. It's incredible that he's got a chance to do that, and he's going to do it for a long time.
And that is Case Keenum coming to the Bears after not able to playing last season because of a foot injury, but 66 starts on his resume in 80 games. Only 12 starts in the last 6 years. But, Jim, 11-3 in Minnesota in that 2017 season. He had 22 touchdowns and just 7 interceptions. And I'm sure there's a lot there you can relate to. I'm intrigued by him calling quarterback play an art and a science. Would you agree?
Yeah, that year in Minnesota, he was the number 1 quarterback against the blitz. Okay? He knows protections. He knows not how to get sacked or avoid sacks. And so that'd be a resource if I were Caleb and Tyson that I'd tap into. And you hang around the league 12 years for a reason. And like you said, he's an undrafted guy because he takes his job seriously. He's responsible for what he had to work for everything to stay on a roster. He knows what it's about. So, they need to use him as a resource. Tap into him. How were you the number 1 rated quarterback versus the blitz? How do you learn your protections? What's hot? What's not? How do you protect yourself? Utilize that asset, that experience that he has. He's been in 8 different offenses that he just mentioned. Okay? So he knows a lot of football, is my point. Use him. Use him. He's a resource that you can learn from.
One thing about Case, I don't want his experience to be wasted only on the quarterback room, because he's got the same mentality I did. Every single day I walked in the Hallis Hall, I thought this may be the day that I'm going to get cut. And his dedication and desire to be a professional football player should spill over to some of these other young guys who take it for granted. Because once you start taking the NFL opportunity for granted, then the next step is going to be out the door. And I think Case can be a great reflection to every single position in that locker room about what it takes to be a dedicated double-digit years of service player.
A word on Bagent, by the way, Jim, because more often than not, I'm hearing these same platitudes about his preparation and the amount of time he spends on being ready. And for Case Keenum to come in here only for a few months and know that out of the gate he's seeing it firsthand says a lot about Tyson Bagent. And this sounds like it'll be a pretty interesting battle for the number 2 job.
If teams are going to call to trade for Tyson Bagent, I guarantee you, they may have already gotten them calls. The word's out. That kid is a grinder. That kid prepares. That kid went 2-2 as a rookie. And Justin Fields was getting sacked 1 out of every 8 plays. Tyson Bagent was inserted into the lineup. He was sacked 1 every 21 because he knows what's expected of him. The word's out. He will be a hot commodity that teams will call to trade for by the trade deadline if a quarterback goes down. Then you still have a veteran in Case Keenum that could step in and play. And the Bears could get assets for Tyson Bagent. Okay, that kid's the word's out. He's a good player.
I would like to keep Tyson Bagent. I like this player. I like his personality. I think he's good for the football team. He's got the respect of the players as well. Tom, Jim knows all these ratios of sacks per pass. Jim, did you know yours?
No, I didn't know mine. I know for the Bears, I only got sacked 7 times that whole year. I do know that.
The 2001 season?
Yeah. We got sacked 27 as a team, and I was responsible for 7 of them.
Holy smokes. And doggone it, if it didn't happen in that playoff game, we'd be singing a different tune, Jimmy.
Hey,
Hugh
man,
Douglas.
Hugh Douglas and me right now, cage match. Let's go.
Right, Hugh Douglas, Tommy, Hugh Douglas. Oh, he was a nasty player. But, Jim, you were a hell of a quarterback here, buddy. A hell of a quarterback. All right, let's take another break. Coming up, we'll hear from defensive player, a defensive end that has a lot of significance to his game and will need to be that way this season, Montez Sweat. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network. Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy. Jeff Joniak, Tom Thayer, and Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio, getting you set for the start of veteran minicamp next week. We talk a lot about Caleb, a lot about the offense, but strangely, I've had some speaking engagements up here at Hallis Hall with Bears partners, sponsors, or whatever, and I find myself, Jim and Tom, not talking that much about Caleb. I'm talking a lot about coaching, and I'm talking about other important pieces to the puzzle, because it is a puzzle. It's not just about the quarterback. Yes, the quarterback has to play well and all that, but and one of the guys I've been talking about is Montez Sweat, and I think I mentioned on Waddle and Sylvie earlier tonight when I was on with them late this afternoon that, I'm thinking that I never heard this, but, Montez Sweat had some issues in training camp with a nagging injury, and it may have lingered throughout the whole season. That's my guess, and I think he was working through some stuff. And now with a new defense to learn that he has not really played in much, it's probably a pretty big learning moment right now for Montez Sweat, albeit that when you're an edge rusher, you know what your main job is. You got to go get the quarterback. But stopping the run will be as equally important this year.
Yeah, that's one of the requirements of Dennis Allen is having a defensive line that's willing and able and capable of stopping the run so they have the opportunity to rush the passer. But if there's any one marquee name on this roster that means the most to the success of this football team, it is probably Montez Sweat. And not to deny the fact that Caleb Williams is going to be an important part of the future of this organization, But when you go out and you get a guy like Montez Sweat and then you give him a big contract, you want every offensive line, every offensive coordinator for 17 weeks to think about how you're going to block him. And then when you figure out how you're going to block him, what openings does that give the other members of the defensive front seven and even defensive backs for that matter? So when you look at Montez Sweat, he's got to be such a dial mover for your defense that other guys are succeeding because Montez Sweat is succeeding.
Right, and Jim, not every team has a pass rusher that can demand a double team down in and down out in the pass game. But those moments when he'll be chipped or whatever, it does open up some great opportunities from other defensive linemen. That's the obvious. And I just think he's a terrific talent. He's still young, and he's still got a lot left in the tank.
He does. He's got to be a double-digit sack guy. I believe he had 5 last year, whether he's hurt or whatever was wrong. They need him to be a double-digit sack guy. And on the other side, whether it's Booker, whether it's Deo, who's brought in there, need to take advantage of that. If you got a double-digit sack guy on one side, you have to be able to take advantage on the other side because of the attention that he commands. And those other guys got to step up and get in on the party, no matter if it's a rotation or if Deo's the guy. It's just you got to get minimum. If you can get 20 sacks from your 2 outside guys, you're cooking with gas. If both are double-digit, you got something good brewing. But if he can be just who he is, a double-digit sack guy in Sweat, and then you can get, whether it's Deo, Booker, other guys opposite, to get up to double digits, say 5 and 5 as a rotation group, now you're talking. But it starts with Sweat, period.
I think the pass rush does on obvious third downs start with Montez Sweat. But I think you have to have the understanding that if Grady Jarrett gives you interior explosiveness and he's making penetration into the backfield, and now you're talking about how a center guard tackle will slide all the way out to Montez Sweat. Now if they have to slide quicker and maybe sustain a little bit longer time with Grady Jarrett, then that's going to give Montez Sweat some one-on-one opportunity. Or if they feel that guard's got to slide out to help the offensive tackle as quickly as possible to try to get to Montez Sweat, it's going to open up opportunities for Grady Jarrett. And so I think when you look at the relationship between those two guys, that's where the influence of pass rush is going to come from.
All right, let's listen in to Montez Sweat from the podium yesterday here at House Hall. His initial opinion of his new defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen.
He's a very complex individual. He has a lot of fronts and schemes and things that he can attack the offense with. So he's a great guy. Smart.
You were thinking about it for a second, but why is complex the word that comes up when you think of DA?
Well, I mean, I'm saying I'm trying to learn a new defense right now, so it presents its challenges, different fronts, different blitzes, different coverages and things like that, and it's just more than I had to learn in the past. I would say so. He's definitely a little bit more complex than DCs I had in the past.
Seeing how the team addressed the D-line, how do you feel about that? I'm
excited. Adding new talent on the D-line every year, you get new guys and new personalities and things and stuff like that. So, I'm excited what the year has to offer.
I wouldn't say it's early, but what has Grady brought to that room, both off the field and how do you expect he'll bring it on the field? Because obviously that pressure in the middle should probably help you out, I would imagine.
Yeah, Grady he's brought a lot of leadership and experience to the room. He helps out the young guys a lot. He's also kind of played in this type of defense before that some players haven't, including me. So he's helping out in that aspect too. So Grady's a big help right now.
Montez, I know you guys are still getting to know the coaching staff, but are you already sensing that they're bringing in the right energy, or there's a sense of buy-in in the room that the culture is going to change the way that you guys feel it needs to?
Yeah, I definitely feel like we're on the right track. You can do all the hooting and hollering before the season and all that type of stuff. It all comes down to what's happening on Sundays. Are we winning or are we losing? So we'll bring the judging board out there.
What's expected out of you in this defense that's different from the specific defense you played under Flus?
I I don't know. I don't think much has changed. Football is football. I'm just probably playing from another alignment or from another stance. But at the end of the day, I'm out here to affect the QB. That's what I intend on doing.
Grady said that Javon put together those workouts y'all did down in Miami. You showed up. Why do you think that was important? But also, what do you think he said about Dex? Did he put that together?
Yeah, Dex is he's a leader on the D-line. He's a leader on his team. He's actually from Florida, so it was kind of convenient for us to come and meet him down there. And I just thought it was important because just meeting your new teammates, letting them just developing that chemistry and all those type of things. It's important.
Last season, you guys struggled to stop the run, especially towards the second half of the year. What kind of changes has DA brought in? Of course, the talent that's been added that you think is going to affect stopping the run more positively this season?
We're going to see. We understand that we got to stop the run and rush the passer. Everybody likes to rush the passer, but you got to stop the run first. So that's definitely a big emphasis in his defense, and that's what we plan on doing.
That is Montez Sweat, guys. One of the key things he said there that really got my attention, that he looks at Javon Dexter Sr. as one of the leaders of the football team. And I mentioned this earlier today as well. The more young guys that can emerge as important leaders is a great sign for the future. And there's any number of guys on both sides of the ball. If you just want to stick on the line of scrimmage, a guy like Darnell Wright and a guy like Javon Dexter Sr., Tommy, that would be huge. And that was Javon Dexter's initiative that brought those guys together.
Yeah, you think of Grady Jarrett and the enthusiasm that he approaches football with, and you look at the skill and the athleticism what Dexter Sr. has. He's going to have to figure out how to complement whomever he's playing next to, if it's Montez on one side and Grady on the other. But he's going to have to turn into that high draft choice, bona fide defensive line leader that develops a reputation within the conference and within the division, that he is a guy that you have to identify his whereabouts as much as Montez or anybody else in that defensive line. And we've seen steps of improvement by Dexter, but we need to see it for 17 game all year round type of performance.
Jimmy is a hustle guy, backside guy, downfield guy. Do you feel that there are dominant traits that can be pulled out of him from Dennis Allen and the D-line coach?
Definitely. He's an interesting guy who's like Tom said, he's made splash plays, but this is a new defense for him. And it's good that, here you just heard from Montez Sweat saying, hey, man, this defense is pretty complicated. It's pretty complex. And Dexter's the younger player than even Montez Sweat. And he's out there just showing leadership. So it tells me he feels pretty confident in what he's being installed and that he is going to do pretty well in it if he's out there, bouncing around and having that type of enthusiasm where guys are calling him a kind of a leader guy. He should be a more confident guy. He's played. He's had splash plays. He knows he's capable of more. And now he's going to be in a new defense that probably, if anything, would cause him to be more reserved out at practice. But it seems like he's excited about this move and how he could be utilized. So it could be a good thing. But a young player who's ascending is what I'd say.
Right. He's only 23. He'll be 24 in season on October 5th of this year. So a young player, Jim. Born in 2001, Jim, when you led the Bears to the playoffs. We're getting old.
Who was our defensive leader? Well,
no.
I'd say,
no. Javon was born in 2001. I said you and I we're getting old.
Yeah, I can't even believe that. That's don't bring that stat up again, Jeff.
I won't. One more segment to go. We'll get to the lightning round, as I like to say. Tom's thoughts. We got Tom's thoughts. He texted some today, Jimmy. You saw him. We'll break them down. They're coming up next on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
You're listening to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back, everybody. This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Hope everybody's feeling great. Final 5 minutes of our program tonight as we took a canvas look at the week that was here up at Hallis Hall. Let's talk DeAndre Swift. I want to talk to you guys about the fit and how he can be used to his full capabilities with Ben Johnson. Jim, we'll start with you because he was with Ben in 2022. And if you just go on Pro Football Focus rankings, it's just a good gauge to give you some, just a ballpark anyway. He had his best rushing grade in 2022. That was his final season in Detroit. It was not a big workload, small sample size of carries, but at least it gives you some idea that Ben Johnson knows what he has in a DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, he knows them, and DeAndre should feel pretty comfortable with how the system is set up. And didn't work out in Detroit, but here he gets another bite at the apple, so to speak, in an offense that he's familiar with an upgraded offensive line. So he should be pretty excited about that. And I think for Swift, he's definitely a 3-down back. In my opinion, he's been in a couple of places that really haven't utilized him the way he should have been utilized, and I think Ben will tap into his skill sets. But he's a good receiving back out of the backfield. One drop in Detroit kind of plagued him that kind of went south for the fans, that he dropped a touchdown pass and he kind of never recovered, and why he got, ended up moving on to Philly. So the best is yet to come, I think, for Swift. I think he's got probably the best personnel around him as he's had other than Philadelphia prior to Chicago.
I believe DeAndre Swift is a 3-down back. There's no doubt about it. However, there's one thing that Ben Johnson said when he was at the podium. I want to make sure DeAndre Swift is willing to get the dirty yards. And so that will be something that I will pay attention to in the early portion of the season. If it is that 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 2nd and 3,
yep.
Are you willing to take the point of attack and commit to it?
Yeah, and another thing, my head turns every time. I love the screen pass. It's one of my favorite things for a running back, not just a wide receiver or a flanker screen or a tight end screen. But I'm watching, and there's this lightning bolt, and it's Swift on the screen with the big guys out in front. That could be some deadly damage there. All right, some of Tom's thoughts. Tom, offensive line. We talk about left tackle. It's going to be a big battle at training camp. No question about it, between at least those 3 guys that we know of right now, when a healthy Braxton Jones, Amagaji, and Ozzie Trapillo. But you are not shying away from the rest of the battles, because the spillover for the 6th and 7th and 8th offensive linemen, you got to view them also as starter grade because of the threat of injury or performance issues, correct?
Well, you think of the Bears' offensive line last year, if they didn't have Coleman Shelton, where would they have been at center? Now you're talking about there's the 6th inserted offensive lineman. Then you do have a late season injury by Braxton Jones. So this is not only – and I know we focus a lot of attention of the future of the left tackle with the Chicago Bears because it is really important. However, when you're talking about an offensive line, you better have minimum 7, hopefully 8.
All right, and Jim, time off after training camp. It's always a pet peeve from my big guy over here, Tom Thayer. What are you going to do with that time? He feels it's as important as training camp itself. Do you agree?
Yeah, you better be cranking it up prior to training camp starting. You better be in your best shape because there are no guarantees. This is a new coach. So you better be ready to go day one if you're a player. So I wouldn't do yourself a disservice. I would not do your team a disservice by coming in out of shape and not knowing your assignments, because that would not be a good thing. And as Coach said, it's not going to be allowed. So don't even fall into that trap if you're a player.
Yeah, the mental part of it, you better stay as dedicated to the mental part of it as you are right now, going to meetings every day. The weightlifting part of it, the conditioning part of it, that's what's expected of you. However, you can't come in here in full pads and start making mental mistakes.
Yep, that'll be the first thing that gets you cut, for sure. Or at least lose your position. Guys, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate it. For Tommy and all our producers, including Jack McGrath, this has been Bears Weekly on the new radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. We are joining Game 5 of the NBA's Eastern Conference Finals between the Knicks and the Pacers. It's coming up next here on ESPN 1000. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Chicago Bears Network presentation of Bears Weekly, hosted by the mayor of Bearsville, Jeff Joniak, and Surfmaster Tom Thayer. Podcasts are available on the Chicago Bears official app. Brought to you by Verizon and Apple Podcasts. Bears Weekly has been brought to you by Miller Lite.